You can clap some more. Hello?
Has to be ready.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello. Oh, there you are.
Welcome. I'm Robert Scott Smith. I'm assistant professor at the University of Utah. I am head of the actor training program here, and as part of the College of Fine Arts 75th anniversary, we're celebrating the theme of rooted. And personally, what Miles is sharing with us today and what they've written in this book, I think really speaks to that idea of roots, of spreading themselves out, finding themselves, discovery. You know, tree has many lives, it goes through many seasons, and so I felt that it was really a great opportunity to bring an alum of the University of Utah and of the actor training program, part of the College of Fine Arts, to help celebrate the 75th anniversary of Rooted. So thank you, Miles, for being here. We've been friends for 25 years now, so we know each other very well, and we thought, for us, I think what would be most successful is for us to have a conversation as friends and to invite a majority of you who are here today, who are our friends as well, to just have a conversation. We're going to focus on the book, but I think we're going to focus on life, we're going to focus on art, we're going to focus on storytelling, we're going to focus on the themes of becoming. So that's our goal for the day. So thank you for being here. And I just want to welcome Miles Borrero.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a treat to be here and to see so many friends, and it's actually kind of intense to look out because there's so much love coming this way. So thank you everyone for coming out to
to celebrate A Beautiful Monster, a memoir, Becoming, by Miles Borrero. It's moving and it's powerful. And if you haven't listened to the audio version, I highly recommend listening to the audio version as well. It will take you on a journey that is unexpected. We'll talk a little bit more about the audio part, but there's a passage in the book that we'd like to start with. Let's start there.
We wanted to start by honoring. Did you want to say anything about where we are? About the land that we're on?
Yeah, I was going to follow with that.
Okay.
But we are on we're on the ancestral lands of the Goshu, the Paiute, and the Utes, and I think as we recognize those that came before us and the lands we're standing upon, we thought it would be important to start with this that's in the preface of the book.
To all of the transcestors and younger than me. So this is the deal. I'm Latin. There's going to be some ugly, loud crying, and that's going to be okay. Most of you know this, but if you don't, I'm just letting you know what you're in for. So here we go. To all the transcestors and younger than me, gender nonconformist originals. For your bravery and unstoppable imagination. You are the measure of a whole heart. May the world realize this someday soon. And that's part of the dedication of the book, and this is part of the acknowledgments, or the author's note. I also wish to acknowledge that while each trans person's journey is unique, the overall experience of walking this path reveals challenges and gifts that are worthy of exploration by both the reader and the world at large. My wish is to invite you into the depth of feeling, wisdom, and magic that we bring to the table.
for those of you that have read the book, you'll hear throughout the themes of those that came before through speaking their voice. You hear their voice, and Miles expresses that very clearly throughout, and it's as though the ancestors are lifting and guiding you, maybe even pulling you along the way. Where in the process did that come into the book? I mean, how did that?
That's a great question. The book originally, there was this little boy that was on the other side of the mirror, of Alice's mirror, and in the first few sort of iterations of the manuscript, and I think eventually what that little boy on the other side of the mirror turned into was the ancestors, was that my ancestors sort of started to come, and we kind of healed our relationship in retrospect through the writing of the book, through my writing of the book. I feel like I have a closer connection to them, and that we were able to heal in retrospect. And they are like the whispers in the wind. They're like our intuition, or the parts of ourselves that we know are there, but that we don't really acknowledge. Yeah. So I think that's kind of how they came about. And I knew who some of them were. Like, I experienced them as some of my actual ancestors, and also there were others that I didn't recognize that were that were more ancient. And their energy, I feel like really, it was a collaboration with them, was really what writing the book was. You know, it was a conversation with them, and with sort of like honoring their stories as well as trying to honor my story.
You've mentioned hero's journey. I've heard you talk about that, and that idea of, you know, someone's on a path, and it feels like that connects itself. Is these voices that are your guides, your daemon, all of those parts of what is found in, you know, a lot of great writing, you know, mythology, and it's just really beautiful, and how it's expressed throughout. It's just a reminder that often we forget to listen to those that have been here and those that have experienced life, and to take that and to let it guide us. And so that was a really powerful thing that just really stood out. I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, it's awesome. And
well, the hero's journey also, like for me, I feel like we are all the center of our universe in some way, and so we're all going through a hero's journey, right? And I felt that my journey as a trans person has been I had to find my mythology. I had to kind of commit, because I had to kind of invent myself. I didn't exist in the world in which I was occupying or present. I didn't see myself reflected. There was no reverb from the outer world. So it took me a long time. It took me 40 years, and I had to kind of imagine myself into being. And then once that imagination had taken hold, I realized that I didn't need it anymore. You know? That really the work was done, and I could let the mythology and the sort of supernatural go, and I could just be myself. I could just be the most mundane, like domestic, you know, simple version of myself, because I just did not really experience that as a person growing up and trying to figure out who I was within the scheme of the world that already existed.
there's a passage I'd like to have you read at the beginning about the one we've already talked about. This is, for me, what's interesting is in life as an actor, we often are told and reminded, look at play, look at children that are playing, and they often, in the way they hold themselves and in the way that they use their imagination, they're free from a lot of things that they haven't learned yet. So they're their most free. They're their most willing to play. They're most willing to say yes. The most willing to just believe, and nothing has been really put upon them to create something quite yet. And I think what's really powerful in the book is that this is something that you talk about as the boy that exists before the world started telling you that wasn't the case. And I think this is just a beautiful moment in the book that I thought would be really great for us to all to hear.
At the pond one day, a man played with a remote control speedboat. Fascinated, I stared at it as it skimmed the water's surface, taken by its beauty, sleek, black, aerodynamic. There was something inherently cheeky in this elegant imitation of the real thing. The engine, rudder, propeller, it all astonished me. The man handed me the remote. I took it timidly. I'd never played with an adult toy before. The metallic scent of warm batteries flooded me with pleasure as I took it for a small loop around the water. When I went to return it, the man smiled at me. "You should keep it." I didn't understand. "It's yours," he said again, handing it back to me. Remote in one hand and boat tucked under the other arm, I ran back to the apartment. But my excitement was quickly extinguished by my mother's interrogation. She was not keen on me receiving gifts from strangers. What did the man want with me? Off we went to find his house. Answering the door, he said, "I want him to have it." A jolt of euphoria zapped my nerve endings, making my cheeks red hot so suddenly that I almost blacked out. My heart beat loud between my ears. No one had ever called me a him before, on purpose. Mom didn't attempt to correct him, but her whole body tensed, as if our game had been found out. With a dry thank you, we left. Walking back in the oppressive heat, a small crack formed on the pavement between us, a crack that would grow into a chasm through the years, before we could figure out a way to build a bridge over it. My spirit receding underwater, leaving only the sound of my breath for company. Mom stopped to open the door of our apartment, too worried to see the widening fissure, thinking only of the Cavaliers with a sharp pang of guilt. What she didn't notice was the guilt hitting after the thought, not before. That's when I felt it, the dissonance between space and shape. Before, I had been limitless, mostly space. I knew myself, the space inside myself, the same as the space outside myself, plainly and simply. Empty, no words or thoughts around it. No, not sad empty or lonely empty, full empty. Assured knowing of myself empty. I was boy. Whatever the girl-boy markers of the world were, they weren't yet exclusive enough to single me out, to tell me that I didn't belong, that I was anything other than what I was. Enough, whole. I wasn't gauging my beingness from the outside, but rather from the inside. There was no worry, only ease. It didn't matter what people called me because I looked and felt boy. Of course, I didn't have anything to compare it to. I was being into form. At that age, we are as close to ourselves as we are to one another as ever. There's hardly any distinction. I didn't know then what boys could look like. I didn't care. I didn't have a brother. There was my dad, but he was just that, my dad. I guess I didn't think about it, not knowing then that one day, sooner than later, I would be found lacking an evolutionary threshold called puberty, turning a relatively small and ultimately insignificant bit into the everything the world would obsess over and define me by. Puberty giving me other unwanted bits I would grow to hide. I remember Susie deciding she was a fashion photographer, making me model dresses and makeup and sunglasses. She was assembling an album of her work and had me pose in different places around the house. My lips puckered in Mom's red lipstick, shades pulled down the ridge of my nose as I walked around in Mom's heels like I'd seen in magazines and on TV. Delighted in getting to play a girl. For that's exactly what I was doing, a player loving his role. In play was freedom. I was free to be me, boundless within the walls of my form, with no understanding yet of what these clothes would come to mean, the way they would bind me, painfully, sometimes literally, a bind I wouldn't know how to get out of. Perhaps the clearest reason I turned to acting in my college years. My awareness was beginning to shift. Dear God, let me wake up a boy. Let me wake up a boy. Let me wake up a boy. I asked every night I asked. I thought, if I behave, it will happen one day. But what does it mean to behave? I was such a good kid. The ancients knew. I was taught to ask when I should have been taught to listen. Let me wake up a boy. Their answers came, buried within the crashing of the tides. So hum, I am that. I have to take off my glasses to read now because they see too far away and then I can't see the page. That's where we are.
I just wanted to pick parts that you'd cry in. I'm kidding. You're amazing. I always say this in text when we talk. I always tell Miles that you're my hero, and I feel it's just moments like that, to hear that and to see the journey that you've been on and where you are. It's remarkable, and how you've just stayed true to you within all the things, that the waves that have kind of tackled you or tried to knock you down. And it's clear in the journey that there were a lot of things that were happening and going on that you didn't share with a lot of people. And maybe I'm curious, did you know at the time that this was happening, or do you feel looking back you're discovering this? I'm curious of which came first.
I think there's no way. I think one of the misconceptions about trans people out in the media, and one of the storylines that they love to feed, is that we have some sort of plot. That we're plotting the demise of the nation and gender and all these things, and there is no plot, people. There is just no fucking plot. Like, seriously, I'm 46 years old, and until I sat down to write this book, I couldn't really follow. One of the wonderful things about writing the book for me was, obviously the stories that we tell ourselves are the stories that come true. And I'm aware that this particular story is a telling of this story, right? It had to get edited down to, I wanted it to be beautiful and cinematic for you. So it had to get edited down to sort of like the distilling of the elements. And I'm not married to this being the only story that exists about me. But what was useful for me was taking a look back and at least like caring for some of the breadcrumbs along the way that I had not been able to tender on the journey, and being able to be like, oh, that was there, and that was there, and being able to string them together, even if somewhat, into a false narrative, let's call it, because it's not the only narrative, right? But to string them together into a way in which I could look back and find the plot finally. I'm like, oh, that's what the trans plot is. Okay, I get it. I was trans from the beginning, and now guess what? I'm still trans. Yay, we figured it out. But I think that was the benefit of being able to look back and piece all the little bits together, which I don't think I would know myself as well. I think I learned so much about my past, and also because when when you grow up in a world that actually, we've all grown up in a world that has a few options, right? And when you seek any option that's outside of those options, no matter what it is, you're kind of forced to, again, invent the option, to make it sort of what works for you. And I think in the process of doing that, you're not always, it's not a thought process, you know what I mean? You're following something deeper inside of you that craves expression. And so, so I just think that the process of it's not like a thought out thing. And as you discover that, that's when you're able to flesh yourself out. And I really felt like writing the book for me was almost like I had a skeleton of me, and it was like putting flesh onto the bones in a way that I could really understand better where the cracks were and what they meant to me, because before that, I really don't think, I think I was just surviving, honestly, before I was able to look back and view what had brought me to this time and place.
What was the spark when you said, I want to write a book?
I'm a yoga teacher, and I wrote a blog for 12 years, and it was about how philosophy, which always felt up here to my students, how to connect philosophy to the real life of existence. And so it was a series of essays. I wrote once a month for 12 years, basically, because I just wanted to have a place to do something fun and express and tell stories. And so, and the essays really varied in whatever was happening in my life, I would basically connect it to that. And to a bit of yogic philosophy, and try to make sense of bringing it into a practical place. And then my students over time kept saying, "Oh, you're a good writer. You should write something." And my mom and sister are both published writers, and I was like, no. Yeah, no, thank you. That's their stuff. I don't want to take that on. I think I was more identifying as an actor at the time. But when my dad got sick, well, no, he had been sick for a long time, but when his health declined quite drastically, it just really distilled what was important. And I knew that I didn't want him to die, not knowing this part of me. So when I started compiling, I was going to originally make a book of essays. And at that time, that's when his health took a turn. And I thought, when I was looking at the essays, I was like, wait, there's another story that really needs to be told here. We need stories of trans people surviving and thriving and offering something positive, and I felt that I could do that, still honoring the difficulty and like being fair and honoring still the great adventure that it has been, but I felt like I could put something out where a young person like me might see themselves reflected and maybe have a better time.
Yeah. I know your dad very well, and I wonder do you feel there's a bit of a love letter to your dad?
It's a love letter to my parents, totally. I think my mom was a little mortified, to be honest, because I think it's really hard to read that your kid hurts. But she's amazing, and she's been able to kind of take this journey with me. And I think it is a love letter to them, and it's a love letter to all of you. Like it's a love letter to our lives, to be audacious and why are we so scared of everything? Like, what difference does it make? You know what I mean? Like why can't we paint outside the box. I mean, the doodles on the picture are painted outside the box. Like, why can't we paint outside the box a little bit? And I think for my mom has really been here for most of my transition. My dad didn't make it, you know? And I do think that it's ultimately like a love letter to them and to their ability to change. I think it's so uplifting, the fact that we can change. Can you imagine if I still thought the things that I thought 10 years ago? I mean, please, just like get rid of me. You know what I mean? I feel like it's so amazing that we can change. And we're so scared of change because it's terrifying to be in a new territory. But it's a celebration of how brave they've been to walk that journey with me, because they've had a lot on their plate. You know, I mean, I am a dramatic child. Like, I'm loud. You know, like I'm big. You know, and so I think that they've been amazing, and I really wanted them to know how deeply I honor their journey.
It's there's a lot of universal themes for a lot of people who read, who have read this, about relationships with parents when were not maybe what they expected in a myriad of ways, you know? The universality of your book is really lovely. Do you feel that was an intention, or did that, okay, yeah, maybe you want to talk on that?
Totally. I think what brings us together, our humanity, is so much bigger than our differences. And our differences are the sparks that give color to our lives, right? And I wanted anybody, you know, above, I mean, probably the age of 12, to be able to pick up this book and get something. And I think what makes us universal is our humanity. And I think when you add love to that equation, then it's kind of unstoppable. And so I wanted to write, you know, in books nowadays, they categorize them, so it's a trans memoir, but I wanted to write an awesome memoir. You know, I wanted to write my memoir. And yes, it's a trans memoir because I happen to, you know, identify as trans right now, you know, or whatever, but it's a memoir about a human being who's lived a very strange life. And, you know, because I grew up in Colombia during the Escobar years, then I moved to Salt Lake City out of nowhere. You know, that was a surprise, like what the hell? And so I feel like that's what I wanted was, I wanted you to be able to pick up this book and be like, what a delicious story. I relate to something in it. And I think every single person in this room, I'm pretty sure, you don't have to be trans to know what it feels like to not belong, to know what it feels like to paint outside the box. I feel like we all have, we all have those moments where we have to cut the umbilical cord and stand on our own 2 feet as opposed to our culture's 2 feet or our family's 2 feet. And that's what this book is about. You know, this book is about the moments that make you brave in your life and that help you live your life to the fullest. That's what I wanted to convey. That's what I wanted to inspire. And if that makes you trans, congratulations. And if it doesn't, you know? Turning people one person at a time.
I mean, those of me that, you know, spent time with you, you're the best to come to when someone wants to work through something and you know, figure something out. You just hold space so beautifully, and you have a way of taking things that people are saying, and just often you're just telling them to like relax and breathe, right? This is kind of a part of a book thing, but what is that about you? Like, what is that you have that ability to do that? Like,
I don't know.
Is it a relationship to horses and that communication?
Maybe so. Yeah, I guess the first creature who ever saw me was my horse Merlin. What an awesome name, right, Merlin? He was amazing. I think that animals, Bowie, my dog, gets misgendered at the park all the time. He doesn't actually care. He really doesn't have a problem with it at all. But I'm like, Bowie, what didn't you, like, why are you, like, that's so bizarre to me, right? But I find that children and animals, they don't have that filter. When children have it, it's a learned thing. It's not like children meet a gay person and they're like, gross. They don't have that filter. They just don't. That's a learned behavior. And animals are the same way. So for me, horses were sort of the key to the kingdom, because I felt like while riding, nothing mattered. The only thing that mattered was my breath and his breath. And they're so sensitive that they can smell your fear, they can smell your hurt. I mean, we all know that, when we're sad, our dogs or our cats come right up. When we're doing yoga, why do they come? Because we're breathing. They're sponges for that energy body. And I think early on, that was something that really I found that really alluring, and I wanted to be that for other people. I wanted to be like a breathing organism and not a judging organism. And I've always, in my relationships, I feel like I've really, I actually don't have to try that hard because I've been doing it for so long, but I feel like I've always tried to show up for people in a way that's with my presence, and let them discover what it is that they want. It doesn't matter to me, it's never mattered to me I'm super happy to support whatever it is that you want, And I think that I learned that from good old Merlin back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's your magic power in the way that you hold space, and I've seen it happen. I've experienced it, of the energy, and then all of a sudden you have a way of just, and then it just, oh, thank you. And you just were holding space. It's really beautiful. Reading the book it's incredible, and the imagination and the visuals that are created in this story, but hearing it with your voice is really, it blew me away what I didn't get by just reading the book, because I'm hearing you breathe, and it's in the audio, and it's part of the audio. Clearly there's chanting and there's things that are happening beyond that, but just your breath and the story and the way it is the voices that get woven in through that is really wonderful. I don't know if there was an intentionality behind that idea of the breath and maybe reading it. I'm just curious if there's something more there.
That was a trip. First of all, I really wanted to read the audio, but they can't guarantee, when they pick up the book, they can't guarantee that you're going to be the person that reads the audio. So I had to audition to get my own role. And after being an actor for 14 years and having not acted for 10, I was like, God damn it, if I can't land this role, I'm really going to freak the fuck out. And I really was never meant to be an actor to begin with. So that was the first thing. I had to audition for my own part. But I hadn't acted in, I think I haven't acted in like 10 I haven't, been in the sort of thing of acting for maybe 10 years or more. No, more, because I've been teaching yoga for 17. So part of it was a really amazing reintroduction to acting, because I could do it for myself. I used to be like a penguin dressed up as an orange, at an audition, trying to pretend I was an orange, you know what I mean? And now I'm actually myself and my voice. I've had so much trouble with my voice all through school. I had so much trouble with my voice. I've had polyps in my vocal folds. My teachers just could, the lilt and the this and the that, and where's your lower? And like all these things, and I just could not get it, And finally, reading it, it was quite exceptional because I was like, fuck all of you. My lower's alive and well. It just wasn't, I didn't have it then. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not the voice that I was equipped with at the time. I don't even know if I can cuss. I'm so sorry. But I have a potty mouth.
Too late.
I know. But to your other question, the intentionality of the breath, I think because I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm a super hyperactive, I think I came into the world as a very hyperactive, intense personality. Something that I've really learned to appreciate the hard way over time is being able to down-regulate and being able to I feel like I spent a lot of my life ahead of myself. And so the process of dropping back into my spine to meet myself in the present moment has been a really wonderful practice. And it's something that I try to bring to my students. I think it's one of the things that I can teach. And so when the reading of the book was so satisfying because it's kind of like a yoga class. My hope was that when you listen to it, you get the same effects as if you had practiced a pranayama or as if you had taken a yoga class, that because I'm breathing, that it inspires you to breathe. Because I know from being on stage that if I stop breathing, you're gonna stop breathing. That's just, it catches like fire. So, I just tried to be present with the story, and when I was reading it, I thought of you, the reader or the listener, and I was like, I just want to share my story with you, and I just want to breathe with you and hang out with you for the duration of these pages. And if you look at the book inside, there's a lot of space between the lines, and the placement is very intentional. And I wanted that space in the audio, But yeah, I think I nailed it.
Yeah, it's worth a listen.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of, I feel like that was such a comeback to my roots, speaking of roots. And I feel like, yeah, thank you. The book, I'm really proud of the book, but I'm really super duper proud of the audio, because you get to hear my voice now healing all of those parts.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was a really wonderful experience for me, and I'm glad I got the role.
That's hilarious. There are so many things I want to talk about and read and do. We're getting to the end of our time, and I want to open it up to the audience to ask some questions. One thing I'm curious about, though, before we segue, and I'd be remiss to not ask about this, but your time here in Utah, and maybe I kind of know why you ended up here, and I'm just curious if there's that coming here, and then in the book you talk about the transition, the change that came about that feels like it opened up a path forward as different characters you were putting on, which led to where you are today. But I'm curious if there's anything you want to share about that, maybe.
I auditioned for the ATP with my dad breathing heavily into the video camera. And I did a monologue, for those of you who are in the theater, from John Paul Sartre's No Exit, a 45-year-old Inez. And then I did a Chekhov, Ivanov, which I also mispronounced. I had no idea about theater. I literally picked those two texts out of the ether of the library and I memorized them, and then stood there terrified, probably with jazz hands, spouting it out all in one piece. And for some reason, Kenneth Washington got the videotape and, decided this kid needs help. And, and was like, I'm going to bring them over here to see if we can help them. And that's how I ended up here. But the truth was that Utah sounded like anything else to me at the time, the time before Google, where I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know where it was. I didn't really, geography didn't mean anything to me. And so coming here was like going anywhere else, basically. And my parents didn't want me to go to New York because they knew that would be bad. So they sent me here. And I have to say I'm the biggest cheerleader for Salt Lake and for this town, because I have found just so much ease here. So much love and so many friends who are all of you in the audience. Like my family, my chosen family lives here, and like landing in those scuzzy, amazing Pab studios. I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I had never seen a giant studio with hardwood floors and ballet bars. Not that I wanted to take ballet, which I had to. Yes, in pink tights. But I hadn't seen anything like that. I literally, I remember just sort of plopping down, face down, and on the floor. And my dad, who brought me here, being a little concerned because he didn't know what was happening. And in Colombia, I grew up in a country that was in a state of emergency for the entire time that I lived there. Like a declared state of emergency by the president and all of the people, right? Our Supreme Court was bombed. Politicians were murdered. Friends of mine were murdered. People were kidnapped right and left. Bombs were going off. Escobar's thing was that he really thought terrorizing the populace for no reason was going to get him what he wanted. So that part of his thing was being random. So I grew up in a state of complete uncertainty. And coming here, where you could leave your door unlocked, was bananas. I was like, this is amazing. This place where and I came into an inbuilt community at the ATP of amazing artists and friends who just immediately gravitated toward me. My high school was kind of like a prep school, and I was artsy, so obviously that didn't go over very well. So I really landed with the group of freaks that I was meant to, be a part of. And it was really just such a wonderful experience that I've kept coming back and back and back, and now created a family here.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know your connection to Utah is strong, and your family here loves you very much. Speaking of which, let's open it up. If anyone has questions or anything they'd like to ask, now would be a great time. I do have a prepared question that someone shared, but if we can start there. Hi, Joel.
Love the book. So beautiful, poetic, but I felt like there were so many places in it where you did find something to trust, or a sign from the universe, or these kinds of things. And I felt like especially some power around that last piece you did at ACT, and then kind of how it connected back, and you found yoga through that. I don't know, I would love to hear you talk about how you came to start seeing things like that, or seeing the world, the universe, or even looking for signs like that. I think it's really beautiful.
When the world doesn't offer you reverb, the only thing left is your spine. I think that comes from that place. I had to learn to trust myself because all the input I was getting was, it's kind of like you're wearing a pair of glasses that aren't right for you, And so the world looks askew. So I think my backbone perhaps was tempered by that process, and then as time went on, what started to happen was that I learned to trust that. And more than that, I showed up for it. I think the one thing about me is I'm a little bit of a positive Polly, to a default. And so I think that when things would get rough, I would lean into my bravery. I would choose me. I kept choosing me, even though it took a long time, and even though it maybe didn't come to fruition over like many, many years. I think I kept making little choices where I was like, this matters to me, I'm gonna keep, and the more, what you practice, you get good at. So I think the more I practiced that, the better I got at it, and the braver I got. Yeah, I think that's what I have.
Thank you.
Dally.
You're amazing. This is so good. Can you describe to us sort of the settings where you wrote the book? What time of day? Where was it at? Or was it night and day? Or did it?
I am such a hot mess. I'm such a disorganized. I wrote this book. When my dad passed, my mom decided, fuck it all. We're going on a trip for my 70th birthday, and there were 4 of us left. It was my mom, my sister, my nephew, and myself. And she was like, you're all gonna pick a place in the world, and we're gonna go. And that's what we did for a month. So part of this book was written in the back of a car in Iceland that, with all the suitcases, like typing like this in the back of a car while my sister almost killed us, driving like a maniac. It was written in the tiny, it was really written in, I feel like in tiny moments of where madness was ensuing around me, and I just went in, and then, those were the first drafts, and then a pandemic hit, and then it was just Sarah, my sweetheart, and I sitting on a couch, staring into each other's eyes, being like, hey babe, how are you? How are you, babe? I'm fine, babe, how are you? And so then we continued the writing of the book on that couch, her on her computer, me on my computer. She would trail me. So Sarah basically edited this manuscript. By the time it got to the editor who purchased the book, the editor had 10 notes that were grammar notes. Wow. So I mean, Sarah really is yes, totally. Sarah, I mean, she really brought out when I handed her the first things that I gave her, it was 40 pages of Arial, single-spaced, in 11 inch or whatever the dimension of that is. And she was like, no. She's like, sweetheart, no. You gotta, nobody can read this shit. You gotta double space it, you gotta put 12 on it, give it a Georgia or something so that we can look at it. So it was really Sarah who coaxed the story into being and helped me shape it. And that process was really beautiful because we were in a crisis in the world, and it was like a lifeline for us, and it was also like a way of like a sexiness between us that it was like foreplay. So it was really lovely to get to have that time, I think that made the book come alive quicker. It only took 6 years, but I think those 3 years of the pandemic were really important years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amber had a question. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I must say, I wish every dear friend of mine would write a memoir. So I feel like I just know you even more and love you even more. Just like the best. And I want to know how you've been so patient with all the people around you. You've been like so loving and kind to all people, figuring out how to do this with you. And I want to know how you've managed that.
I'm not even sure. Maybe it's just because people are, and thank you, Abby, that means so much. Just because people make mistakes doesn't turn them into bad people. I've been so lucky. I have had so many wonderful people in my life, many of whom are in this room right now. And I'm not capable of discounting someone over a mistake or even a million mistakes. And that this comes to the positive poly issue. I'm also really I'm loyal to a fault. So really, you'd have to do I don't even know what you'd have to do to get rid of me. I'm kind of like, once you meet me, you're kind of stuck with me for life. So there's that. But I also think that we're all learning, and the world has been changing, and I have so much respect for everybody's bravery. And when people can meet me there, you know what I mean? I'm like 100% yours. Like I have friends in this very room that, like I remember one of my friends in undergrad, we had a very special relationship. And like she was not afraid of me. You know what I mean? And I could feel that. And so I feel like those moments where we meet ourselves in our own like worth and in our own in like the best of what we're capable of, that's what keeps me going. And I believe that we are all capable of that, as much as we are also capable of hurting people and being terrible, But I can't live in that world. You know what I mean? Like I can't exist, I can't get up in the morning in that world. The only world that I can get up in the morning is assuming the best out of every person that I encounter. And if it doesn't come to pass, then, yeah. I don't know. I think I maybe came in with some of that, learned some of that, and if we don't grow together, we won't have any people, Relationship happens in the tough times sometimes. Like it happens in the rigor of friction. It happens in the moments that are off, in the moments where we get off with one another. And it happens when we choose to come back, when we choose to... So from my part, I feel like I've always tried to make that choice. And I'll continue to do that with the world. I mean, it's part of why I wrote this book, because I want to, I'd love to inspire people to grow and to see the best in each other. And maybe even be the best in themselves,
Did I see another hand? Anne?
I had a hand. Are you going to call on?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I am.
And then you.
mundane compared to what you just shared with them. I understand the great move, but I'm curious, the fact you could write with your family all there together, was that a hindrance? Or did you share with them as you were writing, or were you quietly in the back of the car writing and saying, don't talk to me?
I was quietly in the back writing. In a Latin family, you can't say "don't talk to me." Those fuckers will talk to you no matter what. My sister, she will not shut up. Like, she will talk to you whether you like it or not. So that wasn't an option.
Did you share it with them? Did you ever share it with your mother while you were writing?
So I didn't, because this is actually, so what's interesting is the book, it's alive. It has, I'm learning, because it has had a life in all of its incarnations, and now it's just been out like 3 weeks, and I'm seeing more things that I hadn't seen. What I mean by that is, I didn't share it with them. I didn't share it with them until it was a manuscript that was already in print.
Oh my.
Because I needed to tell this story. I needed that for me. And I tried to tell it as lovingly as I could in terms of everything that had happened. And I tried to focus the camera on, the lens on myself as much as possible. I needed that for myself. And now that the book is out, I'm like, oh my gosh, it would be so amazing to be able to have a conversation with my mom or go back and be like, Mom, how was this? Like, how did you experience these things? Like, what was that for you? Like, what did you, but I don't think I could do it, because I think if I had let them into that process, I would not have been able to tell my story in the diamond sort of shape of it. But now I really, really want, and you know, I don't know if my mom would be open to this, to having that conversation or to having a conversation around this. We've only talked about the book via letter. And I respect that. And I really, if that window ever opens up, I would love to just hear what it all was like from her end, you know?
Did you share that with her?
I haven't yet, but it's a thought that, because the last time I saw her was at the book launch, and it was very intense, you know, it was like there was just a lot going on, and for her it was very intense, and but I think it is something that I'd like to explore, maybe, you know. And I also kind of, I want to talk to my sister about it too. And yeah, I didn't really share it with them.
And I'm assuming your dad had passed before the book.
Yeah, he was one of the ancients. He was really excited. He was like, I got all of his feedback over my shoulder, always like sticking his fingers in the pot and saying what he felt about the cover, about all the things. He was really excited. The picture that's on the cover was a picture that he took. And when the publisher said that she wanted to use that picture, he was like, honey, I'm going to be famous. He was so excited. And so, yeah, so he didn't get to read it, but I feel like that's okay, because it seems to me like the spirit, our body actually gets in the way of our moving around. Like, I feel like spirits have an easier time of, you know, there's not so much, I don't know, and because they've passed, they don't hold on to the things that we do. It's just a different thing. So, yeah, I know I'm sounding a little nutsy right now, but yeah. You had a question.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted, so I kind of have two questions. The one, I'm just going to start a little bit heavier, but first I just wanted to say, like, it's good to see you in person. Like, we only talked for an hour, and it was kind of just like a happenstance conversation, but it felt less of an interview and more just like somebody I've known before, even though I've never met you up until that point, you know. So I just wanted to ask, there's been some things that have happened on campus and with sort of the political climate, especially in Utah, when it comes to young trans people, especially like trans kids getting their healthcare cut off. What do you say to like you students who are facing that? And then to end a little bit lighter, you talked about like the connection of monsters and mythical creatures to queerness, and I just wanted to know like what mythical creature / like monster from anything, and within that liminality of transness, do you identify them most?
Ooh. I would say to the kids who are losing their health care, that's not right. And I think that over history we will see that that is a huge gaping mistake and that that will have cost us a lot of lives. But I would say to what is that word? To find shelter in their community and their friends, to find the people that they can relate to and to hold on to that, because I do believe that that's not going to be a permanent thing. I do believe that there are more people that are in the middle than the haters, even though the haters are louder and organizing clearly in some states much better than the other people. But I would say to them that we're here and we're going to keep doing everything we can to help them get the care they need. Yeah. But I feel like because there's more visibility now, there are also more of us, because we are able to be like, oh, okay, that's what's happening, you know what I mean? Not because we're making more, you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into that, but the numbers have increased, and I think help is on its way. The cavalry is coming, and change, unfortunately, in a democracy, change sometimes drags and takes time. And I know that that's not okay, and I think that impatience with that from young people is wonderful, because it sparks us to move our asses more. But I do believe that help is coming, and that things will get better. I don't have any evidence for that, other than I think historically we kind of move. I had an Alexander teacher that used to tell me that we move in spirals. And so she would say that whenever I felt like I was taking 5 steps back, what was happening was I was looking at the back end of the spiral while it was going up. And I think history moves like that. But there's no movement backwards. There just isn't. We can only move forward. Our timeline as humans and the planet's timeline, we only move forward. So even when it seems like we're going back and we're going into retrograde times, I do believe that there's hope. I do believe that the light is there. Look to the light. As far as the mythical creature that I relate to, it changes. I mean, do I have to pick a color? Today I'm thinking I'm a merman, but that really, it really could be anything. I also really like those mythical creatures that have like calf legs and like fawns. They're rad. And also like half horses, I feel like I'm also like, what are those?
Centurion.
Centurion? Everybody said it at the same time and I'm,
Centurion are the ones with the caps and the. Pegasus is a flying horse, right? Yeah.
Pegasus is a flying horse. Well, I would love to fly, but I don't think I'm Pegasus. I'm definitely like the half man, half horse, some days. Yeah, I think that's what I have for you. And thanks, Arlo, because I really appreciated our conversation as well. And it's really, I've been following what's happening on campus, and I'm so proud of you all for I just don't think we have to tolerate that shit. I think it's come to the point where some people are behaving badly, and it's like, it's up to the mass of the majority, which I do believe the majority is for us, you know what I mean? And it's up to the majority to step up and be like, no, stop behaving badly. Slap on the hand. Don't do it, you know?
I think we need a bulldozer.
A bulldozer? Well, yeah, I mean, we might need heavier, yes, you're right. Yeah, totally.
Some of them.
Any final words, final thoughts, something you want to leave us with?
It's kind of surreal to be here at my alma mater in like a cool auditorium with like beautiful, you know, it's really kind of dreamy to be here with this project. And I have to tell you that the book hasn't done well. And I'm saying that because the publisher and everybody who's worked around the book has been so surprised, because the editor who bought this book said that she thought it was the most beautiful memoir she'd ever read. And I'm only telling you that because the team has been so surprised, but it's so hard as a trans queer person, Latinx, I don't know if any of those factors, I don't know what factors in more, but it's just so hard for us to have our voices out there, to have our voices heard. I'm saying that to inspire you, because I'm starting a grassroots effort to try to get this book out into the world so that people can read it and they can maybe change a little bit, or, you know, get something out of it. And so I'm kind of counting on you to buy the book, to buy an extra copy for your friend, to send someone an audio, because we have been totally thrown under the rug by the publishing world. And listen, I don't give a shit. I'm not gonna make any money off of this book. I'm just telling you because I think it's a story worth having out in the world, and I think we all could use some of this learning. And really, it's all up to us how we're gonna be able to get this book out in the world. So if there's any way that you'd like to help or that you can help, that's what you can do as an ally with your trans people in your life, is you can show up for them and uplift their voices. It's even really hard for me, like I'm amazed that I've survived as a yoga teacher for this long, because oftentimes like I get overlooked for, like it's just a completely, I'm swimming upstream in a tiny, tiny minority, and I'm saying that for you to know so that you can appreciate that perhaps some people's flow is tougher, you know? And that's important. I think that really is important, because the way that things change is not with me. It's with you. I'm the spark, but you're the fire. I need you. We need you, you know?
The world needs you.
Thank you. So we will have copies out in the lobby that you can purchase. And if
And by
any of
the
you
way, the
brought,
bookstore is a trans-led bookstore that's been around for a year and 2 months, so support Legendarian.
yes, Legendarian, and they're out at the table. They will have copies. And
I'll be signing.
Miles will also be at the table signing copies for you. So I know there's a lot of people who would love to squeeze you, hug you, talk to you. So we'd like to allow for that to happen, but we'd also like to allow moments for Miles to be able to sign some books. So I'll let Miles navigate that because you've done a few of these already.
Don't worry, I'm a great sergeant.
Yeah, so thank you all for being here. Thank you to the College of Fine Arts for supporting us, especially for Marina's work on leading this, these two
Thank you,
teenage
Marina.
boys, trying to
Oh my
figure
gosh,
this out. We've been a mess. So thank you for supporting us and
And thanks Louisa and Aaron, and I'm sorry I don't know your name, who you're shooting the thing, thank you so much. It just means so much, your help, you made it seem so easy.
yeah, we both love this place. We love this school. We love Utah, and we're so. I mean, this is where we met. So the thing that brought us together, we're so grateful for. So thank you, and be well and be kind.
I would just like to add really quick, you can change right now how well Miles' book is doing by buying extra copies. We have lots outside.
Totally. I'm gonna go get my pen and